Welcome to Metal Talk. It's Paul, and I'm talking to the one and only Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Chris Shiflett. Hi, Chris. How you
Yeah,
doing?
baby. I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. You're a
Yeah.
you're a very, very busy man.
Yeah. This year has been, the last year has been pretty nuts. Yeah. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I
Yeah,
like it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's fascinating to me. Your whole career, it seems to have gone through so many different things. So obviously, you learned to play guitar at 11, I
Yep.
believe. And obviously, were you were you sort of drawn into it? Because I know your brother Scott is a bass player.
Yeah.
Was there always music in the house?
Oh, big time. Yeah. I always credit my older brothers with setting me on that path. That was by the time I was born, they both had great records and and we would just listen to music all the time and my brother Mike played guitar, and then eventually my brother Scott started playing bass, and then I picked up guitar around 11.
So there must have been, sort of, as you say, so all that music around the household. But you were almost going to be a soccer star.
Well, that's what the internet says, but that is not true. I wish that was true. But if I could have been a footballer, I would have done that.
Yeah.
um, but No, sadly, I don't know where that rumor originated, but there's no truth to it at all. I only played at like kind of a low level when I was a kid,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm 52 now, and I'm about to turn 53, so I think I might have missed my window. I don't expect Arsenal's calling me anytime soon.
Well, it's interesting because I know you're an Arsenal fan, aren't you? And I think
Yeah.
a buddy of mine, Matt Reynolds, uh, is in PR, and I think he took you guys along to an Arsenal match.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I was when I first started playing with Foos. It is funny because I am an Arsenal supporter. Pretty randomly, just picked Arsenal because I read Johnny Rotten's book, and that was the only connection to it. And then the first time that I went to the UK on tour, we had an off night. This one I was in No Use for a Name. We had an off night, and we just bought cheap seat tickets to a Tottenham game. And I didn't know anything about it back then. I didn't know the rivalry between Tottenham and Arsenal. I didn't, I was totally clueless. So that was actually my first football game ever was at White Hart Lane, which I think is kind of funny now. And then when I joined Foos, um, one of the guys that worked at our label over there, my friend Richard Connell, took me to several games at Highbury over the years. When we would be over there, if it would coincide with a game on an off day or whatever, he would take me. Um, and so yeah, I was lucky I got to go to a few games there, and then I've been to some games at the Emirates over the years, and yeah, yeah.
Not thinking of
I know
doing a
that I
rhyme.
know that just having this conversation is going to upset like 90% of the people that ever listen to this interview. So yeah, I apologize.
You're not thinking of doing a Ryan Reynolds and taking over a bit of the club.
I think that might be out of my budget, but if we
Yeah,
can come to terms,
Wrexham affordable. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But I say you soon got into playing for bands, didn't you?
Yeah.
14 was your first band, wasn't it?
Yeah. 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 My first band was at my ninth grade talent show, and we did two Kiss songs. And that was it, man. I was hooked.
That adrenaline, that sort of adoration, and
Oh yeah, the hairspray. I mean, this is the '80s, man. My hair was this big.
yeah, yeah. Well, so was
Yeah.
mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now my fringe is at the back of my head, which is not good.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, because obviously you were a big Kiss fan, so
Sure.
you had all the posters on the walls and everything.
Oh
Must have
yeah.
been odd, all those years later, playing with Paul, playing that sort of guitar
Oh,
intro to Detroit Rock City.
oh man, are you kidding? Yeah, we've been lucky enough. It's an interesting thing because Dave's kids went to school with Paul's kids or something like that. So they were like parents at the same school, and we played like a couple school fundraisers with him, and then he came and played at Dave's birthday party at the Forum, and that was the one that I
Yeah,
mean they're all it's just great to interact with any of those guys anytime, but to be on stage at the Forum and play Do You Love Me in Detroit Rock City was like
yeah. So,
yeah.
for the 14-year-old kid, if someone had told you you were going to be doing that back then, as you just finished your two Kiss numbers, someone would say, "Hey, Chris, by the way, you're going to be playing with this
I mean,
guy."
I would have laughed in their face. But of course, I wanted that. That was the dream,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
somewhere there was something like that was the dream. But yeah, I don't know that when you're a kid, you really expect it to ever come true. So yeah.
yeah. But it's yeah, an incredible sort of just an incredible turn of events. But obviously, you went sort of more into the punk, didn't you, when you first sort of ventured with
Well, yeah, like
bands?
when I first started playing in bands, we were trying to be like glam rock and roll bands, and that was like the mid '80s. And then by the time I was an adult and moved out of my mom's house and moved to LA, like when I was 18, just music was it was just changing. Music's always evolving and always changing, and the scene changes. And I got to LA and things were very different than they had been just a few years before. And just my own taste just evolved over time. And
Yeah.
one thing led to, I played around LA for about 5 years or so, and nothing much ever happened. And then I moved to San Francisco and got a job at Fat Records, and that led to me joining No Use for a Name, and then it was just kind of off to the races.
Yeah, obviously, the material you're doing these days as your solo material, when you played at the Scala last year, and prior to that, is very sort of honky tonk country orientated. Was that something again that was played around the house? Was it your folks influence, or was it something you picked up yourself?
No, yeah, I mean, it's hard to trace exactly now. We didn't grow up listening to country music, but there's so much residue of country music in a lot of the stuff that was just kind of around, like the Eagles and stuff, and certainly the Stones had some of that, and kind of just seeped in here and there, and then and just more and more over the years, I got into Uncle Tupelo and all that kind of stuff, and Steve Earle, and then just kept kind of peeling back the onion, and eventually found Buck Owens and Merle Haggard and Waylon and all that stuff, and then just the whole sort of alt country Americana thing has just evolved so much over the years. There's just that's just kind of. I mean, I kind of listen to everything, but
Yeah,
I do listen to a lot of country music.
I guess there's always that great tradition of songwriting there, isn't there? I think I
Sure.
remember one of the things you said on stage at the Scala was that your wife said, "Never go full cowboy." With
Yeah,
everything. But
totally, totally.
it's just, yeah, I guess for a while, I guess maybe in the 70s and the 80s, certainly over here, um, country music was a little bit looked down on. But say with the Americana, with the appreciation over the years, people see what great songwriters those guys were.
Oh yeah, and
You
great
know,
musicians. And
yeah,
to be fair, when my wife said that, she was really making fun of my hat.
yeah,
Um, but but yeah, it is an interesting thing with how people perceive country music, and always found that for people that come from more of a rock and roll background tend to kind of look down their nose at it and dismiss it, and which is unfortunate because it's like any genre. There's a lot of different styles and types of artists, and some of it's pop and some of it's super, like to me, like some of the greatest lyric writing of ever in any kind of music. But there's just there's just a ton of different sort of styles and sounds that fall under that umbrella. So I don't know. I just view it like anything else. I don't like. I don't know. Ultimately, I just don't care. I guess. Yeah, I just listen to what I like to
Yeah,
listen to.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
sit there
yeah.
and go, I listen to this because it's this thing, or I listen to that because it's that. I just listen to whatever I feel like listening to at any given time. Up there's my cat just jumped into the frame. I knew they were
Yeah.
going to get involved. They every time I'm on one of these Zooms, they gotta make themselves known.
Yeah, there was that. I say with age, you appreciate there's stuff that you hear might be hear peripherally as growing up. For me, it's like Glenn Campbell. Wichita
Yeah,
Lineman I'd heard for years, and it wasn't
yeah,
until a little while later as I was growing up I really appreciated what an incredible voice he's got. What an incredible song. It's an incredible song.
yeah,
But then
sure.
what a great guitarist he was as
Oh
well.
yeah, oh
Incredible
yeah.
guitarist. And people don't quite sort of realize that.
Oh yeah, you think about some of those old Merle Haggard sessions that had like Glenn Campbell, James Burton, Roy Nichols, all these incredible players. Um, yeah, I mean that is interesting too. What you said about that being kind of around and you're not really paying attention. But I think back to like just things like the Barbara Mandrell show and Hee Haw and stuff like that being on TV and not stuff that I was into exactly, but you just wound up watching it anyway because there were just less choices of things to, you didn't have 8 million cable channels and
Yeah,
the internet or
yeah,
what.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it was around, or somebody like Johnny Cash that just like transcended genre and just was
oh, yeah.
always kind of there. And, or like Loretta Lynn, Coal Miner's Daughter was like, that was a big movie when I was a
Oh,
kid.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And those songs and it's just that stuff that you almost like take for granted.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I bought my first country album. It was the soundtrack to the movie Convoy.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like
Now
that.
now that is a fantastic sort of subgenre of country music, is like truck driving country music. There was especially in the 70s, all those like Red Simpson songs. I'm a truck. I don't know if you ever listen to any of that stuff. It's
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
great.
yeah. So that was a great introduction to me properly, and one of the first records I think I got was "Then I Make My Brown Eyes Blue."
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, so actually buying that Convoy soundtrack was a dip even deeper. And I was normally sort of listening to a whole bunch of rock stuff or new wave stuff, but
Yeah.
having that was really great. It was something that opened this new world to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Um I mean that's yeah. I think that's how it like, when I think the first country record I ever bought, if I trace it all the way back, was a Johnny Cash collection of his Sun Records recordings, and it was
Yeah,
on
yeah.
cassette tape.
Classic sort of stuff. Johnny
Yeah.
Cash, what an incredible artist, and her, I think, is arguably one of the best cover versions of all time.
Oh yeah.
The the gravitas he puts in is again incredible, and then maybe a late career renaissance, or looking at again, what he did. So yeah, we're gonna be, as you have said, we're gonna be more appreciative of these things as we grow older.
Well, I think also, a lot of that stuff is sort of geared. It's not like teeny bopper music. It's not really geared to to like I feel like you need to have a few like notches on your belt and some life experience to really kind of truly appreciate what Merle Haggard or some of these folks were singing about.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you released in 2013 with Dead Peasants, All Hat No Cattle, which was the Honky Tonk covers and originals. What made you come to that point that you wanted to release an album like that?
Well, what had happened was I made that first Dead Peasants record and then went out and toured it a little bit. And and what, like, that was like the first time I'd made a record with a group of songs that were kind of more acoustic based and more sort of twangy guitar tones. It was a little more Telecaster through deluxe type of sound. And going out and trying to do some shows around that, I just realized like I was not very comfortable in that, performing in that dynamic. And I just, it all started, I was down in Austin one night watching my friend's band that's like this classic country cover band called Hay Bale. And I was watching them and I was having such a good time and enjoying it. It just hit me. I was like, I need to do this. I need to do my version
Yeah,
of
yeah,
this.
yeah.
So I went back home and we just learned like as many old country songs as we could learn and just started playing around town. We just kind of took any gig we could get, there's kind of like a little like alt country scene over on the east side of LA and stuff. So we just started playing around and having fun with it and kind of doing our take on that thing. And we were having so much fun. I was like, we should get in the studio and record some of these, which we did, and that became that record. But we just kind of did that for a couple of years, and it was like just for me to get, it was mostly just to get comfortable playing with a Telecaster through a deluxe, if I'm
Yeah, yeah.
honest. That was kind of like the whole point. And I'm glad to say that I eventually did. You too can play without a wall of gain and volume.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because sort of, just fast forwarding a few years, 2017, your first quote unquote, proper solo album, West Coast Town, came out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like the first like proper solo album, but really like you could look at either one of the Dead Peasants records that way, or you could call the Jackson United records, you know, were kind of ultimately solo records, but I just never wanted to just call it just my name. And then I realized, though, after trying to like sort of hold bands together for years, that it's like impossible when it's something's part time to really hold a band together. So I just kind of gave up on that and just started putting my name on it.
There must have been sort of a buzz to have it, and a great reception to that as well.
Oh, to West Coast Town.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was the first record that I went out to Nashville and made, and I made it with that one and the one that came after it with Dave Cobb producing, which was incredible. Um, and yeah, I mean, I'll never forget the first day that we started recording West Coast Town. I was so nervous, like just so nervous, because Dave Cobb's this incredible producer. I couldn't believe that he had agreed to produce my record to begin with. And and then all the cats that played on it. And there I was in Nashville at Studio A, and it was go time. And I had my bunch of songs, and now we had to actually get moving on it. I remember the first song we recorded was "Good Night, Little Rock." And we ran through a few takes or whatever, however many we did, and Dave was like, "All right, I think we got it." And I'll never forget that feeling, going back into the control room and listening to it through the speakers and what that sounded like versus what what it had sounded like in my head and what my terrible demo sounded like. It just boom, it just came alive. And pretty much from that point on, I just stopped
yeah,
being nervous about it.
yeah.
It's like,
Well,
oh,
yeah,
we got it.
yeah. Dave's got 9 Grammys, hasn't he? So he knows what he's doing.
Probably. He knows what he's doing. That's
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's worked with some great people, Brandy Carlisle, Rival Sons,
Mm.
Chris Stapleton.
Sturgill, yeah, Sturgill, Isbell, Stapleton, all those cats. Yeah, he's made a ton of great records.
And obviously, the relationship continued with Hard Lessons a couple of years
Yep.
later.
Yep.
So it's building on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Hard Lessons was, I felt like I was trying to apply some of the things that I had learned on West Coast Town. The main one being like to go in a little less prepared. Yeah, because I mean, Dave does like doing that thing of just kind of hearing the song and jumping into it, and not Yeah, yeah. Like I remember when I made West Coast End, he goes, "Oh, don't make any demos." I was like, "Huh?" Like I always made demos, so I made demos anyway, you know. And then for the next one, I didn't, not as much. I kind of made like just loose, just me and an acoustic guitar, just to make sure I had a song.
Yeah,
But I didn't like try to sit there and think, well, what would the bass do, and what would the drum, you know? I let it be more loose and kind of in the moment.
yeah. With Lost at Sea, uh, which came out last year, you worked with Jared Johnston from Cadillac 3.
Indeed.
Different way of working.
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's definitely some similarities, you know, say like that Nashville thing of being in the room with everybody and we're all recording at the same time and getting takes like that is really fun and different than how you know, most of the records I've made over the years have been done. So it's really immediate and very fast the way that people work out there. You know, we're all playing together and working it out, and by the time you've sort of get it where you want it to be and get a few passes at it, um, you've got all these options and all these takes by everybody that's playing on it that are so great. And you know, uh, like Nate Kettling might on one a couple passes he's playing slide, and then on a couple other ones he's doing some weird vibey delay, you know. So you've got all these sounds and color. It's great. So there's probably more overlap than not between how we did it with Jaron and how I did it with Cobb. Um, but the main difference would probably be, you know, we would record all the basic tracks. Like I went out and recorded in 3 different times over the course of 2021 with Jaron and with the whole crew. And we would record all the basic tracks one day and then come back and I'd sing all the main vocal the next day. So you would really have the meat of it. And then I would take what we did back home with me and I would tinker with it and add guitars and change things and re-sing stuff. And then Jaron would also take what we had done back home to his studio and tinker with it and add stuff. And, you know, and then I would send him what I did and he would add that in there. And then eventually we'd kind of get it where we wanted it to be. So that was probably the biggest difference. We just kind of worked on it, chipped away at it over time without any real schedule and not in any kind of rush. There was no deadline. We just recorded till we had 10 songs that we liked, basically.
Well, I reviewed it for MetalTalk, and I said for me it had a real.
I thought Zoom had decided it didn't like your question.
Yeah, possibly. For me, when I reviewed the album for MetalTalk, it said it had a real sort of, you know, it had a party vibe. It had like a vibe where you're in a bar drinking with your buddies, but it also had a widescreen vista sort of view as well. You know, that you
Oh,
had
nice.
those two worlds. And for me, you know, I love a lot of the tracks on it. Dead and Gone, looking at my notes, you know, for me that was like Hank Williams Jr. seen through the lens of the Clash.
Oh,
You know,
I will
so
take that as like the best compliment anybody's ever given me, and kind of hits the nail on the
yeah,
head, influence
yeah.
wise. Yeah, that's
And
great.
so you know, as I said, I play it to my son as well, and you know, we both love Overboard. You know, because to me that's got
Oh,
sort of
right on.
slight sort of, you know, Tom Petty-ish sort of
Sure.
tones to it.
You are exactly my target demographic for that song. Middle-aged married men.
Well, that's good. That's good. It certainly works. It's interesting that the little bit of reggae you threw into Damage Control as well.
Oh yeah.
That was a bit off the wall.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say Clash because that's the only old song on the record, and that was what I was kind of vibing off like late stage Clash when I wrote it, and I was having a conversation with Jaron after we'd recorded some stuff, and we were just talking about like what kind of songs we felt
Yeah.
like we needed to do, and he referenced the Clash, like, you know, it'd be cool to have something that was kind of clashy, and I was like, ooh, wait a minute, I think I have something that might just
Right.
fit that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, but you go in there and the next thing you know, Charlie Warsham's playing banjo on it, you know what I mean? And then it's like it becomes totally not what you expected it. You know, in my head, I'm hearing like, um, I don't know, something off of Combat Rock or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
but
yeah.
but you don't go in there and say that to anybody, so everybody just starts doing what they think it, and then it becomes totally different.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Eagles earlier on because I got a bit of Life in the Fast Lane on Black Top, White Lines. You know, there was
Oh, sure, yeah. It's
that
kind of
sort of
like
thing.
that meets like, mid 80s ZZ Top or something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's a little bit of both.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that I wrote that with Jaron and with John Osborne from Brothers Osborne, and Jaron had that riff, and so we really just like had to come up with some words essentially. That song is such a beast to play live. It's crazy because you're singing and you're playing that. It's like I texted Jaron a little while ago, like, I'm sitting here right now trying to learn how to sing and play the song at the same time. And I'm cursing your name.